The wind howled like a living thing, tearing through the trees and clawing at the earth with icy fingers. Snow spun in frenzied spirals, masking the landscape in a white blur. Somewhere within this merciless blizzard, a tiny figure trudged forward, barely taller than the drifts that reached her waist. A red-knit cap bounced with each step, and a small hand clutched a stick like a wand. 7-year-old Emily was alone. Her boots were soaked. Her cheeks were burning from the cold. But none of it mattered. She had seen it in her dream last night, the place where frost sparkled like stars, where creatures whispered in silence, where a fairy garden was hidden deep in the woods. Just past the old pine and the fallen log, then straight into the clearing, she muttered to herself like a mantra. No one in the village would believe her. Grown-ups always thought she imagined too much. But this was different. This felt real. Then she stopped. A sound, faint, broken, barely audible, carried on the wind, not the snapping of branches or the moan of the storm. This was breathing, labored, wheezing, not human. Emily's head tilted slightly. Her instincts told her to turn back, to run. But curiosity pulled stronger. Slowly, step by cautious step, she moved forward. And that's when she saw it. A shape, huge, slumped at the base of a tree, covered in snow. She blinked rapidly as the snow eased just enough to give her a clearer view. It wasn't a rock. It was a bear. Its fur was clumped with frost and stained dark with something sticky and red. Steel chains, thick and rusted, wrapped cruelly around its torso and legs, pinning it to the tree like some ancient punishment. Its eyes were barely open. Ice had formed around its lashes. Its breath came in short, pitiful gasps, misting into the cold air and vanishing almost instantly. Emily froze. Every story she'd ever heard about wild bears flashed through her mind. Claws, teeth, growls. Her chest tightened with fear. She didn't move. She didn't even breathe. Then something shifted. The bear tried to lift its head, just a little. Its jaw trembled. And then it collapsed again. A faint, almost inaudible whimper escaped its throat. It wasn't a threat. It was dying. Emily's fear wavered, overtaken by something else. Heartbreak. "No," she whispered, barely above the wind. She took a hesitant step forward. The bear didn't flinch. Another step. Nothing. She crouched down, just outside the reach of its paws. Its eyes, deep brown, wet with pain, slowly turned toward her. They didn't glint with rage or wildness. They were soft, suffering, pleading. Emily's hands trembled as she removed her red coat. Snowflakes clung to her sweater underneath. She shuffled closer and carefully laid the coat across part of the bear's exposed body. "It's okay," she said softly, her voice cracking with emotion. "I'm here now." Her tiny fingers brushed against the matted fur. She didn't even flinch. "You're not gonna die alone." The bear's breathing hitched, a slow, low grunt rumbling from its chest. Not angry, not aggressive. Just there. A response. Recognition. Emily sat beside it in the snow, ignoring the bite of cold in her bones. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a candy wrapper, half a granola bar. She hesitated, then broke off a piece and held it out. The bear didn't eat. Couldn't. Still, she whispered to it like a lullaby. "My name's Emily. I had a dream about a fairy garden, but I think I found something better." The storm surged again, slamming a gust into her back. She wrapped her arms around herself, teeth chattering. The reality of the cold was returning fast. She couldn't stay, but she couldn't leave the bear either. Tears welled in her eyes. "No one's gonna believe me," she whispered. She looked down at the bear. Its chest rose shallowly. Each breath seemed like a struggle to keep going. Then, her eyes lit up with sudden determination. She stood. "I'll make them believe." She turned and ran, her footprints instantly disappearing behind her in the raging snow. She stumbled more than once, but she kept going, arms flailing, lungs burning. "Help!" she screamed. "Help!" The wind tried to drown her out, but she screamed again, louder. "Please! Someone! Help!" The camera would pull back here if this were a film, zooming out from the tiny running girl, the blizzard swallowing her voice, the snow stretching endlessly in every direction. Cut to black. The bell above the door clanged violently as Emily burst into the small village general store, hair soaked, cheeks red from windburn. Her voice cracked as she shouted, "There's a bear! In the woods! It's tied up! It's freezing! Please, someone help it! It's dying!" Heads turned. Conversations halted. A handful of villagers in heavy coats blinked at the snow-covered child as if she were speaking a different language. Old Mr. Beck leaned over the counter, peering down at her. "A what, now?" he said. "A bear. It's chained to a tree. I gave it my coat." Her breath came in ragged gasps. Mr. Beck chuckled. "Child, what were you doing in the woods alone during a storm?" "I was looking for something. Never mind that. The bear is hurt. We have to—" A woman, resting by the heater, sipping coffee, shook her head. "Poor thing must have been out too long. Frostbite's making her see things." "I'm not seeing things," Emily snapped, tears springing to her eyes. "It was real. It looked at me. It's going to die." Silence. Then, from the back corner of the room, a rough voice broke through. "Where exactly?" the man said, standing up slowly. All eyes turned. He was tall and wiry, with a lined, weather-beaten face and a thick gray beard. A hunting knife was sheathed at his hip. His name was Jonas, an old trapper who lived far from town and rarely spoke to anyone. Emily sniffled, wide-eyed. "By the old pine, past the broken fence. It's chained with metal, big chains, and a lock." Jonas's brow furrowed deeply. He stepped closer, kneeling beside her. "You say it was chained? Not caught? Not tangled? Chained?" She nodded. "With a padlock. Someone did it on purpose." Jonas went pale. He stood abruptly. "Everyone, stay here." Mr. Beck raised an eyebrow. "You're not seriously—" "I said stay." Jonas was already grabbing his coat and pack, moving with purpose. Emily ran after him. "I'll show you. You won't find it without me." "You're not coming." "Yes, I am." The two locked eyes. Jonas saw something in hers, a fierce, unshakable will far beyond her years. "Fine, but you stay close. One step off and we're turning back." Emily nodded. The wind hadn't let up. Snow battered them as they trudged through the woods, Jonas clearing the path with his axe, Emily pointing with numb fingers. They reached the clearing. The bear was still there, unmoving, the snow now nearly covering it. Emily dropped to her knees, brushing snow off the red coat she had laid across its flank. "Oh, no, no, he's still breathing, right?" Jonas crouched beside her, pulling out bolt cutters and a heavy canvas bag. His fingers ran along the chains. "Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing," he muttered. "What do you mean?" "These chains, they're welded in a loop around the tree. Not random. This ain't trapping. This is execution." Emily's eyes widened. "Why would anyone do that?" Jonas didn't answer. He cut through one of the chains, the sound echoing like thunder through the trees. He wrapped the bear in emergency blankets from his bag, then pulled out fire-starting tools. "We need heat, now." Emily reached into her backpack, pulling out a dented thermos. "I have soup. Chicken noodle." The bear's nose twitched as Jonas lit the fire. Emily uncapped the thermos and dipped a spoon into the hot liquid. She held it out, trembling. The bear's eyes opened, just slightly. "Hey," she whispered. "You remember me?" It didn't move. She brought the spoon to its mouth. "Come on, just a little." Slowly. The bear's tongue touched the broth. A small slurp. Its breath deepened slightly. Emily smiled through her tears. "That's it. Good boy." Jonas watched silently. then moved to inspect the chains he'd cut away. His face went stiff. He lifted a rusted metal tag from beneath one of the links, engraved with a number and a tiny, barely visible symbol. His hand trembled. "This is a mark," he said, "from a ring that operated a decade ago. Wildlife traffickers. Real scum. They used to leave animals to starve until they were weak enough to cage and ship." Emily blinked. "But they're gone, right?" "I thought so." He turned to face her. "This one. Someone left it to die slow. No traps, no bait, just chained and left." Emily's hands balled into fists. "We have to stop them. They can't do that." Jonas didn't answer. He was staring into the trees. A sound. Snap. Crunch. Emily froze. What was that? Jonas raised a hand for silence. His eyes scanned the darkened forest edge. Another sound, low and wet, like something shifting through snow. Then, just beyond the firelight, a glint. 2 faint glowing eyes watching from the shadows. Jonas reached for his axe. "Emily," he said quietly, "we're not alone." The fire crackled low, casting flickering shadows through the snowy clearing. Emily sat close to the bear, gently stroking the coarse fur behind its ear. Jonas stood motionless, his back to the fire, eyes locked on the darkness where he had seen those watching eyes, now gone. But the silence wasn't comforting. It was hollow, heavy, the way the forest sometimes holds its breath before something breaks. Then, headlights. A soft hum growing louder through the storm. Jonas spun. "Get down," he whispered, motioning Emily behind the bear. She flattened herself against the snow, heart pounding in her ears. From the trees, a dark shape emerged. A tall man in a black jacket, rifle slung over one shoulder, boots crunching steadily through snow. He didn't look hurried. He was casual, confident. He stopped a few feet from the bear and pulled out a small flashlight, sweeping the beam over the scene. The fire, the chain, the blankets, and then... He smiled. He muttered to himself, "Still alive, huh? Tough one." He turned back toward his truck, its engine humming, parked just out of view behind the tree line. A faded logo was painted on the side, Northridge Timber Co. But Emily noticed something else. Beneath it, nearly scratched away, was a different symbol, the same symbol Jonas had found on the chain. She gasped softly. Her fingers gripped the snow. This man wasn't just here to check. He was one of them. Jonas crouched beside her. "You listen to me. You stay here, no matter what happens." "I'm not leaving him," she whispered. But Jonas was already moving, slipping through the trees, boots silent against the snow. The man in black didn't flinch when Jonas stepped out, axe in one hand, eyes steel. "You lost something?" Jonas growled. The man turned slowly, smile fading. "Didn't expect company," he said. "That bear. You chained it to die here." The man shrugged. "Wildlife's dangerous. Sometimes we contain it." "Padlocked with welded links? That's not containment. That's butchery." The man's hand slid toward his rifle. "Step back, old man. Ain't your fight." "Like hell it isn't." The tension stretched like a wire between them. Then, a whistle, high and clear. Both men turned. Emily, standing just past the firelight, face pale, eyes blazing. "You leave him alone." The man raised the rifle, but before he could aim, a sound shattered the forest. A low, rumbling growl. The bear moved. Slowly, painfully, its legs braced against the snow. Its limbs shook. Muscles screamed in protest. But it stood. The man froze. The bear rose, towering over Emily, ragged, bleeding, weak, but alive, and angry. It opened its jaws. Roar! The sound rolled through the trees like thunder. Birds scattered. The man stumbled backward, rifle slipping from his hands. "Nope," he muttered, spinning on his heel and sprinting toward the truck. He was gone before Jonas could say a word. Silence returned. The bear sagged forward, collapsing in the snow. Emily dropped to her knees beside him. She couldn't hold it in anymore. The adrenaline, the fear, the sheer weight of everything. I can't leave him," she sobbed. "He tried to protect me. Please, Jonas. We can't let him die here." Jonas stepped forward, stunned. "That bear just stood up. For you." She nodded through tears. "We have to save him." Jonas didn't waste time. They gathered what they could: ropes, fallen branches, salvaged tarp, and fashioned a makeshift sled. Emily helped lash it together, hands raw, breath fogging the cold night air. They rolled the bear, barely conscious, onto the sled. Every movement drew pained groans. Emily whispered to him constantly, "You're okay. We're going home. Just hold on." Then they pulled. For miles. Through snowdrifts waist-high, past frozen creeks and fallen trees. Jonas took the front, leaning into the harness. Emily pushed from behind, falling more than once but never staying down. Her face was numb. Her fingers tingled with frost. Her legs trembled. But she didn't stop. The night stretched long and black, lit only by the moon and the occasional flicker of Jonas's lantern. By dawn, they reached the cabin. Jonas flung open the door, and together they dragged the sled inside. Heat hit them like a wall, warmth from a stove that had never felt so welcome. They collapsed the sled and laid the bear on a thick pile of old quilts by the hearth. Emily knelt beside him, eyes searching. He didn't move. Jonas sat back panting, silent for a long time. Finally, he said, "He might not make it." Emily didn't blink. "He has to. I've seen strong animals fall, Emily. Sometimes they hold on until the very end. And still." She turned to him. "No, he's not alone anymore." She sat beside the bear, resting her tiny hand on his massive paw. "Do you hear me?" she whispered. "You're not allowed to go. You're mine now. I saved you, but you saved me too." No movement. She blinked back tears. "You can't leave. Not yet." The fire crackled. Outside, the storm began to die. Emily leaned closer, head resting on the bear's side, fingers curled around his fur. For a long moment, all was still. Then, a tear, a single drop, rolling from the bear's eye, glistening in the firelight. Emily saw it. Her breath caught. She pressed her hand gently over his paw. "Please don't leave me." The fire had burned low in the stove, casting a soft orange glow across the wooden cabin walls. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving behind a pale, frozen silence. Inside, Emily slept curled against the bear, her tiny form nestled against his massive side, her breath rising and falling slowly. Then, movement. The bear's chest lifted, more fully this time. A deep, steady breath. Not shallow, not labored. Real. His eyes opened, clearer now. No longer glazed or fading, but wide and aware. He shifted slightly, the weight of the blanket sliding from his back. Emily stirred. She blinked, lifted her head, rubbed her eyes, and froze. "Bruno," she whispered. He blinked slowly. She let out a choked breath, half sob, half laugh. "You're awake. You're okay. You made it." Jonas stirred from the far corner of the room, rubbed his eyes, and turned. When he saw the bear alert and alive, he didn't speak, just let out a long, low whistle and nodded, like he'd seen a miracle walk in through the front door. Days turned to weeks. Bruno stayed at the cabin, slowly regaining his strength. Emily and Jonas fed him, cleaned his wounds, and built him a small enclosure beside the cabin where he could lie in the sun. He began to walk again, at first wobbly, then stronger. The bond between him and Emily deepened. She brushed his fur, told him stories, and laughed as he tried to mimic her sounds with soft grunts and snorts. He followed her like a shadow. Jonas chuckled and shook his head every time he saw the two of them together. "You've made a friend for life, little one," he said. She smiled. "He's part of our family now." They named him Bruno. One snowy morning, Jonas left a message on a payphone 2 towns over. Just a few words, no name, but the right people heard. 3 weeks later, the mountains trembled. Federal wildlife agents, accompanied by state police, raided a massive logging site masked as a timber business, Northridge Timber Quarry. Deep beneath a remote storage building, they found evidence of years of animal trafficking. Chains, cages, documents, even videos. They weren't just poachers. They were exporters. Dozens of animals, bears, wolves, eagles, even endangered species, were rescued or found evidence of being trafficked abroad. The man in black was arrested. His mugshot appeared on the evening news. But with the truth out came something else. The story. Emily's story. Someone in the local sheriff's office leaked it to a small-town journalist. It hit a local blog, then a regional paper, then national outlets. A 7-year-old girl had rescued a dying bear, nursed it back to life, protected it from a trafficker. The story went viral. News anchors wept on air. Hashtags flooded social media. Bruno, the bear, little girl big heart, let them stay together. And then, the knock came. 2 wildlife officers at Jonas's door. One held a clipboard, the other a tranquilizer rifle. "I'm sorry," the woman said gently. "Bruno's recovering, but he can't stay here. He's still a wild animal. He needs to be relocated to a sanctuary for long-term care." Emily's world crashed. "No," she said, stepping between the officers and Bruno. "You can't take him. He's not dangerous. He's my family." Jonas stepped in. There's gotta be a better way. But the officers were firm. Protocol was protocol. Bruno didn't fight when they loaded him into the transport truck, but he kept his eyes on Emily the whole time. Even as the doors closed, he pressed his nose to the glass. Emily pressed her hand to the cold surface. "Don't forget me," she whispered. The internet exploded. Thousands of people demanded that Bruno be allowed to stay with Emily. Petitions were launched. News crews arrived at Jonas's cabin. Emily was interviewed by a tearful morning show host. "I just want my best friend back," she said on national TV. And people listened. A senator mentioned her name in a speech. Wildlife organizations called for special consideration. Celebrities retweeted the story. And then, something unexpected happened. A coalition of wildlife officials, animal rights groups, and conservation donors came together with a plan. They would purchase and designate a protected wildlife area near Jonas's land. A sanctuary, not for cages, but for freedom. Bruno could live there, monitored and safe. Emily could visit any time she wanted. He would be the face of anti-trafficking efforts, an ambassador, a living symbol of the bond between humans and animals. 3 weeks later, Emily stood in the middle of a snow-covered field just beyond Jonas's land. The sky was bright blue, the air crisp. A gate opened behind her. "Call him," Jonas said softly. She hesitated. Then, "Bruno!" she shouted, voice cracking. The trees were still. Then, far away, a shape moved. A huge, lumbering figure emerged through the pines. Bruno, healthy, strong, his fur full again, dark and gleaming. He let out a low grunt. She laughed, ran through the snow, boots crunching, scarf trailing behind her like a kite. Bruno broke into a loping run. They met in the clearing. He lowered his massive head and she flung her arms around his neck. "I missed you so much," she whispered. He nudged her gently, snorting warm breath into her scarf. Jonas watched from the hill, his weathered face soft with a rare smile. That night, news stations around the world ran the final image. Emily, wrapped in a red coat, standing in the snow beside a massive bear, both of them looking into the setting sun. And below the photo, the closing line read, "She saved him once, but he saved her forever."